At the Future Orchards Walk in Tasmania, we caught up with Craig Hornblow from AgFirst and asked him how growers could improve their harvesting efficiency this year.
Well, probably, the first thing to me is people have to make their orchard really pickable, and I sort of, leading up to harvest, it's about grooming the tree and making sure that they can maximise the effort the harvester putting in is just about harvesting the apples, and that they're not there grading and working their way through it and slowing themselves down. It's always cheaper if we can do that earlier in the season. And so I've got some growers who would they'll thin their tree, but they'll go through their orchard 2 or 3 times again just to get the fruit really pickable, in terms of making sure that when we come to harvest that the pickers are focusing on picking. Doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't have the pickers looking at some form of grading and that sort of thing, but the more we can lay the orchard out in front of them so they're just focused on their picking, that's when we'll get the efficiencies.
You also mentioned a couple of what I would think is novel ideas about how to encourage better performance from your pickers. Do you want to share some of those?
Oh, novel ideas. I don't know. Be more specific.
Like barbecues games and nutrition.
Yeah. So several things. This is a people business, and no matter how much we want to, get into machinery and get mechanised and everything, it's still about people and relationship with people, and thinking about people working as teams and all of that sort of thing. We have to be totally conscious of that, and you've got to really back up the leaders in your orchard or within your workforce who are real people. And then you take that to the next step. How do I support my pickers in that way? Transport, accommodation, and right down to nutrition. Sometimes these people have been travelling around a lot and they're just stopping off here, there and everywhere, going to a dairy and picking up, a bag of chips and a can of Coke and that sort of thing. They're not thinking about how to eat for an 8-hour day. And it's about, they probably need to drink at least 2 or 3 litres a day water, not Red Bull or coffee or anything else, just to get over the hydration. Nothing worse on performance than dehydration, and dehydration will take 3 days to get over. So water, keeping it close to them, having a chilled water source in the orchards, not a bad idea. Offering them that, but also quality of food. Occasionally, having a decent, not necessarily barbecue, but having some really good food there. Point out where they can get good vegetables and good quality food if they're staying nearby and that sort of thing. Nutrition's a really big deal. Also having fun, like encourage them to be part of the community or other things, so it might be the local sports team and things, so they feel comfortable where they're at. They're just not here plugging away 8 hours a day for 6 days a week for you. There's a community here which can add a lot of value to them as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, so planning ahead for growers that are wanting to sort of aim towards their mechanisation and setting up their orchards for that, what are some tips that people can start thinking about now?
In terms of developing their orchard systems, if you're looking forward, then it's all about the narrowness of the canopy. So we're trying to get people's decision making to speed up. So if I come into an orchard like this and I've got to move around a branch to find the apple, it's slowing down my decision making. So simple narrow canopies that are probably 40 centimetres, just an arm's width. So I speed up my decision making, then I can get more efficient in what I'm doing. Height of canopy and evenness of crop load and horticultural output of the orchard is really important in that whole thing looking forward. There's a whole raft of discussion around orchard systems and which is the best orchard system. Everyone's got their slightly different take on it, but really it's about having a narrower orchard system and trying to be as consistent as we can. Within that, we'll definitely be looking at genetics, like the move Crips Pink into Ruby Pink and into Rosy Glow, and these other, as an example, is getting product more, or apples more consistent with colour, so that's making it easier in terms of harvesting as well.
Thanks to Craig and the Millers for hosting us at their orchard, and to Hort Innovation for their funding for future orchards. For more information, please visit the APAL website.